Welcome back to Global Kid Power Hour. Today we got Mr. Antonio Williams. He's going to be joining me from his A.Williams Basketball Foundation. Done a lot of cool things in his career. We're going to be talking about all of that and more with some fun segments coming at you today. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And there he is. Hey, what's going on, man?
How are you, my man? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. What have you been up to since the last time we talked?
Just creating more content, and of course, to be very mindful of the things that we have going on in our country right now as well. So, with that, I've also been taking a lot of time to fellowship with my friends as well, and fellowship with people that I don't know, to make sure that we continue to discuss all the things that we have going on here and why we should discuss those things. So I've been doing a lot of that. How about you?
Man, I've just been still working on the show. Definitely being active with all the things that are coming in our country. Try to post a couple of things. It's unfortunate what's happened last week, and so it's important that the country comes together really strong. And we'll get into that a little bit later in the interview. I want to tell you a little bit about the show real quick. This is Global Kid Power Hour. Welcome. Weekdays at 2 p.m. we have our guests, and basically we talk about many different things in depth, and we try to bring the lifestyle, life lesson type aspect to things. That's a little bit about the show.
That's needed. We need that.
Now, I've been really fascinated by your background because of all the different things that you've been at. I mean, you've done so many different things. I've talked to people like Jack Nicklaus, and I was talking to Graham Bensinger, my guest who was on the show 2 days ago, and we were talking about how it's important to do a lot of different things at a young age and in life, not just to specialize in one thing.
Hmm.
And what you've done is a perfect example of that. I mean, you've been all over the place, and it's truly amazing. So if I remember correctly, you were with the Red Sox, and then you were with ESPN, and then you
Yes.
were with Nike, and then
Yes.
um, the Suns, and now you have your own foundation.
Yes. Yes. So yeah. So again, thank you again for pointing that out. And yes, it's very true that you really have to make sure that you have that. When we always talk about arriving at the best decisions, that's often done through diversity. And when we talk about diversity, that is diversity of thought and diversity of experience. That's how we really start coming at the best sort of solutions for some of the issues that you face from a corporate perspective when you are drafting players, all of those different things. So I've been very fortunate to have a diversity of experience that has sort of shaped the way that I see the sports business and the way that I see the world in general as well. So yeah, all of those things help, and you should certainly do it when you were young. I had a diverse sports experience as an athlete, playing multiple sports. I also had, and including on that academic side, when you look at the ancient Greeks, when they started the Olympics were started because they believed in the concept of balance. And, and that balance is the ancient Greeks are known for being philosophers. So the Olympics came because the philosophy and all those different things were the training of the brain. And from the Olympic standpoint, it's we need to couple the training of the body as well as the training of the brain. So henceforth, you have athletic competitions. So that academic, social, economic, athletic, being well versed in all of those areas gives you that balance. And for you, as you keep going on in your career, when you are connecting with people that you're interviewing, you having a multitude of different experiences and perspectives will allow you to connect with them. So keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate that a
Yeah.
lot. Now let's dive into, first of all, the Boston Red Sox. Tell me about your experiences there, and I want you, for each place that we go to, I want you to tell me what the biggest thing you've taken away from that title was. So first, let's start off with the Red Sox.
So with the Red Sox, I'd say one of the biggest things that I took away from there, and you're representative of that, when we in our baseball operations department, when we were fortunate enough to win the World Series in 2004, and we worked very, very hard to make that happen, and we broke an 86-year curse and all those different things. One of the things, again, you're representative of one of the things I learned being there is because we were all, a lot of us were under 30 and executives there. I guess one of the things that I took away was you don't have to wait until you're older or considered a sage with
Exactly.
respect to your wisdom to start doing things. So you're very representative of that. So that was one of my big takeaways from there with, and one of the other things that I thought about as well is you hear this a lot, and this is very cliche, but when you are trying to solve a bigger problem, you break it down to smaller problems that you can conquer. So when we won the World Series in 2004 and broke that 86-year curse,
Yeah.
right? We weren't competing against that 86-year curse. So we took that big issue and just broke it down to games. Let's win a game here. And that actually worked as a force multiplier to winning actual series. Then let's go win the whole championship. But it was one taking that huge 86-year curse that people looked at as an albatross and just breaking it down. And we weren't competing against that curse. We're just competing against that opponent that we were playing against for that particular game, if that makes sense.
For sure. I've interviewed a couple of Red Sox myself, so Tim Wakefield, Pedro Martinez, two of the guys I talked to. Try to talk to Big Poppy there as well when we were in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Yep.
But unfortunately we got stuck with security. They wouldn't let me talk to him, but that's how it is. But so when you were at the Red Sox, how did that help you for your career going forward?
It helped me immensely because, again, I got to see the ins and outs of how to construct a championship organization. And the other thing that we have a question there, yes, that was the year when we came back from 3-0 against the Yankees. So, yes. So it helped me immensely in that regard. What it also helped me with as well is being there. It's one thing, and it's not easy to work in professional sports. So that's very difficult. But with that being said, one of the things that it really helped me was not only working in professional sports, but working for a franchise that's considered a staple franchise in Major League Baseball. And because it's a staple franchise in Major League Baseball, it's also embedded in the social fabric of New England, the Boston Red Sox. And it's a global brand. So with that being said, I was not only learning what it takes to be part of a championship organization, I was also really learning about the business aspects of sports as well. And because the Red Sox, again, are a pretty viable and powerful marketing company as well. So I was really learning the importance of marketing as it relates to sports and learning more about more than just, okay, hey, let's make sure we just have the best collection of players. Let's also look at these players to see if they have some stories that are native to them that we can tell and have an impact at retail also. And so I learned about all of those things. And then when you come into basketball as well, basketball and the NBA in particular, even though it's a great sport, the NBA is actually an incredible marketing company. It's just wrapped in basketball.
Yeah.
So I really started learning the importance of sports marketing, talking with athletes. Are there stories that they want to get out that they want to help other people with? All of those different things. So again, great time, learned a lot there for sure.
Okay, now moving forward to ESPN, you're sitting there at the desk as a sports analyst, you're being a commentator. Number one, what was the transition like for you?
The transition was it was very interesting because I was going from baseball back to basketball, and I wanted to get back into basketball. And I didn't study in school. I studied American Studies and Economics. I didn't study
Really?
journalism or sports journalism. Say that again. I'm sorry.
I was saying, really?
Yeah, I didn't study that. As a play, I thought I wanted to go work in investment banking, and and so going to ESPN when I was brought on board, I actually my transition was I was working in NBA scouting, not for a team but for the actual league, and the way that I got that position is I literally went to a Boston College game because I was living in Boston, and I scouted a player and I sent the report to every team in the league, and someone in the NBA scouting department saw it and asked me, did I want to do it in the New England region? And so we were scouting players for the draft combine, for those invites. That's what we would do when you work in NBA scouting for the NBA.
Yeah.
And so someone else had saw, and so I actually played at Brandeis University in Boston, and the Boston Celtics used to practice at our school. And
Okay.
one of the coaches, we used to play basketball with some of the coaches when the team wasn't traveling, and some of the Celtics players. And the Brandeis basketball team, we would play with some of the Celtics players and some of their coaches. And so I got to know one of their coaches, John Carroll. And when he was going to ESPN, he saw one of my scouting reports and knew someone with the Red Sox. And he said, hey, I'm looking for a basketball guy. This guy, they said this guy worked here before. Do you know him? And my friend said yes. And one thing leads to another. Next thing I know, again, I didn't study sports journalism. The next thing I know, when I get to ESPN, they say, okay, here's some articles. Here's some ideas. What are your ideas? Oh, okay. That's an idea. Write it. So it was literally, I didn't know that I had an ability to write. I always felt that I was good with words, but I didn't know that I had an ability to write until my first article at ESPN. And so then from that standpoint, we started just working as a scout and writer for ESPN. And then it started to morph into as an analyst, being on air. I started doing more things in that realm. And then I was fortunate enough to get a job at Nike in basketball sports marketing. So that's how it went.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you thought you were better with your words. You started off by writing, learning a new skill, and then eventually you did get to go on air and talk about your words. One thing that I found interesting was you don't see a lot of people bounce around like that from an analyst to a scout, but I'm sure that helps a lot to be able to, really learn your knowledge as an analyst to help with scouting. Can you talk
Yes.
about that?
Yes, it helps you to see the game in a different lens, and it helps you to deep dive when you're looking at players because you've seen them up close and personal, and you're analyzing them, and you're trying to do it in the way. The key is when you're analyzing them. The key when you work for a media outlet is when you're doing that, you have to convey that you're an expert because people are tuning in for your expertise.
Yeah.
Right? But you also have to do it in a way that it doesn't sound as if you're writing this so another scout can consume it. It has to be written in a way that if you or your dad are sitting at your computer and you have only 15 minutes for lunch, you have to be able to look at an article or listen to me talk about a player and say, wow, I only got 10 minutes and he really went deep, but he did it in 10 minutes and I understand exactly what he's saying. So I'm sure you've had classes before where you have a teacher in that class and they are such an expert in their subject that they're teaching it to you and they're not teaching it in a way that you can understand it, right? They're teaching it in a way as if they're talking to another expert in the field. And so, so being able to convey it in a way that everybody can understand it and digest it, that was something that I became very skillful at and was very appreciative of. And the other thing that it helped me with as well with being a scout is when you're working for ESPN and you're in the media, you're scouting high school players, you're scouting college players, you're looking at players that are in the NBA, you're building relationships in all those different areas as well. And
Exactly.
so when you're scouting a player and now you want to know more about that player's character, guess what? You have those relationships because you were interacting with high school coaches, AAU basketball coaches, college coaches. So you can rely and leverage that network and those friendships for success. So that was a huge part of me being a scout for sure.
Do you have any aspirations to get back into the media side of things?
Yes, that's exactly why, we're doing the things that we're doing now at A.Williams basketball. People want to see it. We're doing a bunch of things. We're having people on. We're doing shows similar to this. I'm offering analysis on great plays. I'm offering analysis on WNBA players. And so for me, I am, of course, an overall sports fan, and I have experience in baseball as well. But primarily, yes, most of my socialization in sports has happened in basketball, but I have baseball experience. I was a multi-sport athlete. I have interest in sports as a whole. And so the platform that I'm building will focus on that. And I just did a piece yesterday. We haven't launched it because we're being respectful to the events that are going on in our country. But I did an event. I did a live stream and I hosted it. And I had on the Women of Troy, and the Women of Troy are the teams that Cheryl Miller, Cynthia Cooper, these are all-time great women's basketball players. So for you in Michigan, the McGee sisters, right? Like, so
Okay. Yeah.
these are women that were all-time greats in their field, and how they socialized women's basketball and helped the growth of that, and in a way became spokesman for women, spokespeople for women. And so I had one of the producers of that incredible project called the Women of Troy, and an assistant coach by the name of Fred Williams, who's now an assistant coach for the LA Sparks in the WNBA, but he was an assistant coach on that team at USC. And so, we are talking about all of those issues, and yes, offering sports analysis on the floor, on the field, but talking about the impact in society as well. So yeah, the goal is to continue to create that content and continue to collaborate with people like you. That's the goal.
All right, man. That's great. Nike, now you're into Nike. You're in a field where you're working with, correct me if I'm wrong, but now you're negotiating with colleges about making partnerships with them on the Nike side.
Yes.
Tell me about, I know in making negotiations, you've got to have a really strong pitch, especially when you're negotiating with such a big, high-level team like I'm sure you were.
Right.
Tell me about that experience.
So it was great because, again, it helped me to not a position that I aspired to be in. And the person that I reported into at Nike when I first got there asked me, he said, "Is this your dream job?" And I told him, honestly, no. And I said, before you're taken aback, let me explain. It's hard for me to aspire to a position that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
So I didn't know as a player and as a fan first, and then as a player, I didn't know that who a university partners with from an athletic apparel standpoint. I didn't know that was intended. I didn't know that was negotiated. I thought it was all happenstance because I only understood it from the lens of a fan and then a player. So I had, again, a great experience that some of my prior experience helped me with in terms of knowing coaches, college coaches in particular, high school coaches. So my prior experience at ESPN and other places helped me immensely with that. Understanding marketing when I was at the Red Sox and in the NBA league office before I got to Nike. Those experiences certainly helped me. But then there was a lot of things that I learned on the fly as well. And so, yes, you're negotiating deals as Michigan State or Michigan. Michigan is now Jordan and Michigan State is Nike, and those deals are negotiated, and those deals are fruitful for the university and Nike or whoever the athletic apparel company that a particular university enters into an agreement or a partnership with. One of the other things I did as well from a scouting perspective was also we had our LeBron James Skills Academy. So I would evaluate college basketball players for if they would receive invites to come to our skills academies. And then working with our pro basketball group to help decide once college players became professionals, who was it that we would look to target to enter into Nike partnership deals with. So again, great experience, very rich experience. And, as I went throughout my career, I can say this, our industry is it's so difficult to be a part of this industry that you have to be open to the opportunities that are presented to you. And that's part of the reason why I have so much experience in different areas, because I took it as, okay, this is an area where I need some experience in, an opportunity presents itself, I need to walk through that door.
The never say never attitude, never say never attitude.
Right.
Wow.
And
now,
that's the same attitude that you have.
I appreciate that for sure. I mean, that's how you get things done. That's the attitude. I wish if everyone in the world had that attitude, people could be so far ahead. And I think that's definitely important.
No question.
Sure. Now I want to go through a little simulation here. Say I'm a college, does University of Learning, and I'm a huge college, and we have the best athletic program in football and basketball, and you're with Nike. Take me through the process of how you're going to try to get me on your side to partner with Nike.
So first, we have to look at the terms of your current agreement. Are you is your deal expiring? Are you in that window where you're free to have those that dialogue with other athletic apparel brands? Because you want to make sure that you're being mindful of the agreements that are in place, because you certainly don't want to run the risk of violating an agreement that's already in place. Yeah. Nike doesn't want that, and neither does the University of Learning. So you're looking at that. And so when you're Nike, you're looking at, okay, if we come in and partner with this university, or we pitch this University of Learning on a partnership, what are those benefits that Nike receives? Certainly from a retail standpoint, bigger than the retail standpoint, what is the cultural impact? And then the cultural impact can also resonate at retail as well. So what are the benefits that Nike would sort of realize entering into a partnership with the University of Learning? And if you're on the University of Learning side, you're thinking the same thing. What does that partnership with Nike, how does that benefit us? What are the terms? What terms benefit us? Or what are the terms in terms of, if we go too far down the road, is there a breaking point? Is there a point that we say, you know what, we can't go beyond that because there's no benefit. There aren't real benefits in us entering into a partnership deal with Nike if we go beyond this certain number. So all of those conversations are going, and you're looking at not only the impact now, but the impact 10 years from now, because when you sign these deals, they're long-term deals. They're 5, 8, 10, they're long-term deals. So you're thinking about that long-term impact as well as that immediate. So if you're a player, if you're a university and your deal's expiring, and you may have an amazing set of players, for example, that are coming through, you can say, hey, Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, whoever, we have an amazing person that's coming through. We think that this platform will be something that we can all leverage for success. Well, if you're Nike, you're looking and saying, okay, what's the long-term ramifications of this, not just the immediate? So those are some of the things that really sort of go into the deal. And you're also looking at your current portfolio of relationships and partnerships and saying, okay, if I acquire this one, what does it mean for all of the other partnerships that we already have intact? So there are lots of things that you have to think about when you go to the negotiating table and looking at forming a potential partnership.
How much is normally, if you don't mind me asking, how much is a contract normally worth for Nike with, say, a big school like Michigan State? Like what's a contract like for 10 years?
It varies. It varies. Again, it just all depends on the school. It all depends on the demographic of the school, the geographical location of the school. All of those different things come into play. So it varies. Notre Dame has received, I think their deal is maybe 90 to $100 million with Under Armour. It just all depends on, again, that geographic footprint, that demographic, what sports your student body, your alumni, all of those different things really come into the equation. And so it's really hard to say one deal looks like another one, because they don't. And that's the beauty about these partnerships, because both parties, whether it's you're the university or whether you are the athletic apparel brand, you have to take all of these different idiosyncrasies in mind when you come to the table, and all of these intricacies when you come in and you're negotiating the deal. So it's really hard to say.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll bet. I mean, if Nike puts in, say, with a big school, $100 million, and they're hoping to probably get that back through 1 million T-shirts sold and 2 million hats sold. So, I can imagine. What's the pitch like? Like, in your role pitching to these teams, what would the pitch normally be like?
Again, we are talking about, when you're talking about our pitch, we're talking about not only the amazing product that we would offer and the performance of that product, because in the end, that's what matters. Is the performance of the product for the student athletes and for the university as a whole. But we're also talking as well about the impact of being with a company like Nike and what that does for, people that aren't really athletes, or people that are just fans of the athletic programs that are under your umbrella as a university, and what you can literally leverage their passion for the university through incredible product that performs well. So that's the thing that we're really communicating, and the impact from a global standpoint of having an association with a brand like Nike. Those are the things that you're really selling to that particular university partner when you sit down and you talk with them. And the level of service, what happens after the deal has been consummated and now we're partners. What happens when you receive product, how you're serviced, how we listen to you, all of those different things. When you're working in the athletic apparel space and you're approaching universities as for partnership opportunities, or you're approaching athletes for partnership opportunities, these are all the things that you're really discussing and selling.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say most of the times it's a pretty big profit, or for Nike, or has there ever been a situation where you've seen there's been a huge loss? What is that balance like?
Yeah, again, it all depends. It all depends, because even if you have to look at each situation individually, because even if there is some sort of loss initially, the impact of having a long-term deal, or the impact of having an association with a particular university, sometimes outweighs the quote-unquote financial losses you may receive when you look at your bottom line, at least initially. So again, no one deal is alike. It's all different. But yeah, so sometimes it may be worth it initially to incur a loss, because you're looking at the long-term gains for having a partnership with a particular university. And those long-term gains can include, again, not only you benefiting from a bottom line perspective in the long term, but also keeping that particular partner away from your competitors. So all sorts of things come into play when you're looking at it. Is not just always about the bottom line, and always we got to make sure that we're in the black. So there are lots of things and intricacies that are part of the decision-making process, for sure.
Now you move on to the Phoenix Suns now, and now I mean you're scouting players. I believe you helped pull 3 draft picks. Who are the 3 draft picks that you helped to pick?
So before that, I actually was for a major financial management company. I was
Okay.
starting and operating a basketball division. Um, so again, learning another aspect of the game where you're learning the branding part at Nike. That's what a player deals with. I played myself. So the branding part, working in the league office, working in the media at ESPN, and then working in financial management for professional athletes as well. And athletes, and when you look at all the things that impact them from a financial standpoint, that goes across the board, and it doesn't really matter what the sport is. The challenges and opportunities that athletes face from a financial standpoint are the same. Doesn't matter if that's a hockey player, NFL player, NHL player, MLS player, NBA player, or NFL player. Doesn't matter. So that's one of the things that I really, and it gave me a chance to really sort of put some of my economic background into practice. And I really enjoyed that, and really enjoyed the opportunity to work as a partner with athletes as they not only try to protect their wealth, but also grow it to maintain its generational power. So I really enjoyed that. And I enjoy working for the company that I work for because it allowed me to do it in the space and to do it and value my integrity. Because one of the reasons why I've been able to work at the number of places that I worked at is because I also tried to lead my professional life with integrity. And because again, we're in the relationship business, and once you sort of do something to besmirch your reputation, it's hard to recover from that. So, and I value my reputation in this industry. It's something that I worked incredibly hard to build, and it's something that it doesn't take long for you to lose.
Yeah.
So, so I did that, and then I went to the Phoenix Suns, and I was there. We were 4 drafts, and some of those players that I was sort of instrumental in helping to draft were Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, players that really are forming the foundation for this team. And as we were looking to go young through the draft and build our team through the draft, and so I really valued my experience there. Incredible experience. Again, now I've sort of touched all the aspects that a professional athlete would experience throughout their respective careers. So it's something that now, as I am now in the media, is something that I can use to provide a unique perspective. So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Tell me about when you were picking those guys, DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, couple. I'm sure you've helped draft a couple other guys as well.
Yes.
What was the key criteria that you saw in those guys that would really help out for the Suns?
Well, one of the things that we look at, and if there are young players that are on here or people that are parents to young players, I certainly want to emphasize this. As we live in the era, we live in the information age. So that bleeds into sports as well. So when when teams are selecting players, we want all the information that we can possibly have at our fingertips. So we're going to, from a scouting perspective, attempt to know everything about your game. But in addition to knowing everything about your game from a scouting perspective, we also value your off the floor characteristics and personality as well.
Exactly.
And so, so for young people and that's not something that is specific or unique to professional sports, college athletics and coaches do the same thing. They want to know what type of players they're bringing into the program, because culture is a big word now, and everybody talks about having the right culture. And the way that you establish the right culture is really being informed on the character and the background of the players that you are selecting to be part of your organization or part of your program.
So speaking of the culture of the characters, I'm sure. I mean, we see it all the time with college people recruiting high school athletes where they're not ethical and they're doing bribery, things like that. I'm sure you've seen a lot of things as an NBA scout. Have you ever seen instances where you've seen other teams try to do that kind of thing?
I haven't been involved in it personally. No, I haven't seen that personally. Yes, things happen, but I haven't seen it personally, me. And so, but with that being said, also too, when we are one thing to point out and remember as when we're looking at things that people are saying are unethical, these are things now that the NCAA is now deeming ethical in terms of athletes being able to profit from their having some sort of marketing platform. So again, we have to really look at and make sure that as we are making statements about athletes and young athletes in particular, we have to make sure that we're not sort of being paternalistic and conceited when we are judging them through our moral compass, because the very thing that may have been illegal because the NCAA said it was illegal last year is now legal this year. So again, as we are making those judgments, we have to make sure that we're not bringing our morals into it as well and judging these coaches or judging these young men and women that may receive some sort of benefit for their talent. We have to make sure that we're not judging them from a moral perspective, because morally what they're doing is not wrong. And it's just that there was a law that was made that said it was wrong, and now that law is saying that it's not wrong. So we have to make sure that we're being mindful when we are watching this and we're looking at these athletes that we love to watch.
Of course. Now, going back to at Nike when you're negotiating with these NCAA teams,
yep,
I'm sure there are really, really strict rules. I mean, how tough were all those regulations that they have?
Well, you have to make sure that when you are negotiating that you're abiding by the rules that are that govern the industry, rules that we live under in the United States. You also have to making sure that you also as well have to go under the rules that that a previous agreement has. So if they have another agreement with another brand, so you have to make sure that you're mindful of those rules and then negotiating in the most ethical way possible. Because again, if you've spent all of this time building up an impeccable reputation and your business speaks for it, it only takes one misstep, whether it's intentional or not. It only takes one misstep to undo all of that incredible work that you did. So you have to make sure that you are being mindful of that, and your brand is representative of those ethics and those morals, to make sure that you're leveraging those, as well as looking to be mindful of taking advantage of a particular platform when it presents itself.
It takes a team to build a house. It takes a match to burn it down.
That's right. I couldn't have said that more eloquently than you did.
Man, now back to what you said about when you're drafting players, it's much about their culture. I mean, DeAndre Ayton had a little bit of history. Was that a factor when drafting him, or were there just other things that stood out more?
Well, when you're looking at him as a player, we're looking, of course, you have to look at the talent and make sure that the talent is commensurate with someone that is worthy of being selected with the #1 pick overall. So you're looking at that. And then as you're looking at that talent, again, as I said, you want to make sure from a character standpoint that everything sort of matches up. And when you look at, again, we have to be careful about judging something with our morals. Because when you look at DeAndre Ayton he's never had any sort of issue where he ran afoul of the law or anything of that nature, right? So you're looking at a player when X player, whoever that is, player X, accepts some sort of benefit, that is not against, again, it's not against the NCAA rules now, because they're starting to be able to profit off of their own marketability. So when we last year, if you were judging them through a moral lens, or using your morals to make a judgment, now this is legal, as they're able to. So, so that's one of the things to really be mindful of and pay attention to. There's nothing that he's ever done that, from a moral standpoint, from a character standpoint, that you look and say, you know what, we can't select this person. So again, we lead with we have things in this country that we've seen as laws that were on the books that people use, and they said that certain things were wrong. And now those things are now okay, they're right. So it's really something to really think about, for sure.
Okay, now I want to get to a fun segment here. I always do a couple of fun segments here on the show. Do you have 3 balls you could juggle? I know you know how to juggle.
I do, but I actually don't have them on me.
Man, I wanted to play a game.
We got to do that again. We got to do
for
our
sure,
next one.
Sure. And I was gonna play a game to see if you could juggle longer than I could shoot 3 shots in the same time. Ah, man.
No, you know what? Let's save that one. Let's save that one.
We'll definitely do that one later. And now let's talk about, your family. I mean, your wife, you were talking to me earlier on your show about how her coach is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
How special is that to your family?
Oh, it's incredible. And just in the background here, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because in the background here, I have their 2014 National Championship T-shirt at Bentley University in the back, right behind me. And yes, her coach, Barbara Stevens, is an amazing coach, and she's able to, one of the things to really sort of underscore here is she has been able to have and enjoy the success that she's enjoyed as a coach, because she's an amazing person, and makes she's very dedicated to making sure that she actually makes an attempt to connect with her players. And yes, that was an unbelievable comeback when they came back. No question.
Yeah.
And
undefeated.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable comeback. My wife was actually traveling, and I was watching the game online at home. I wasn't traveling, and she was traveling. And I'm texting her, going crazy, and I'm going crazy in the house. And there couldn't have been a more deserving coach for this honor. And she's going in arguably, it says something about her and her accomplishments, that she is going in with, on paper, a Hall of Fame class that some people are saying may be the greatest class in the history of the Basketball Hall of Fame. And Kim Mulkey, of course, at Baylor, obviously the late, great Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, Kobe, and Tim Duncan, Tamika Catchings, Kevin Garnett. So Barbara Stevens is in that rarefied air. And she is going in with that particular class. And my wife was an All-American there and played at a high level, and also coached under Coach Stevens for 2 years as well. So Coach has had an amazing impact on my wife. Of course, an amazing impact on me as well. And she continues to enjoy success. And she has been able to, one of the things that she does is her success is about everybody else except her, which is why she's been able to have the level of longevity that she's had as well, because she changes with the game, because her success is about everybody but her. But an amazing person, amazing coach, and deserves every accolade that comes her way.
I was able to cover the Hall of Fame last year with the class of Vlade Divac. I'm hoping I can get back there this year. That would be, I'm sure this class is going to be something really, really special to be able to watch. Now, one thing I wanted to ask is I see all your stuff in the background there. Can you give me a little tour of what you have hanging up in your background?
Sure. So we went over the T-shirt, and these are these are Kobe Bryant. These are Black History Month Kobe Bryants that are on display when I was at Nike. These Jordans that you see there are in a case, and they're in a case because I actually got married in those. And when we got married, that particular Jordan wasn't being retroed. So for that shoe, for me, all the groomsmen, my wife's dad, my dad, and my nephews, I actually got 8 pair of Jordans made. Those Jordan 11s when I was at Nike, they
Really?
were made. And
Really?
so yes, so that's why my wife was gracious enough to let me wear Jordan 11s in our wedding.
I was gonna say you were wearing J's instead of dress shoes.
I was wearing Jordans, and because as a player, he was such a big influence on me. I wore number 23, and if any of my teammates are on here, they can attest to that. He was such an influence on me, and so I wore that, and I represented that number, and I can tell you, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And as I wore that number, that was during the time. Let me say this. That was during the time where when you wore that number, there was a target on your chest as well. So if you, and it's on your back, if you wore 23, you had to be that dude
To be
because
worthy of
people
it.
were coming at you, right? So I wore it and people came at me. So and there were times in my life where I went away from it, but I actually enjoyed when people came at me. So I put it back on and started because I just enjoyed the thought, and the mindset that it put me in as a player. So to keep going back into this, that again, this is my wife at work. So when we won the World Series in 2004, these were all the items. That T-shirt there when we were in the clubhouse and in St. Louis, and when we were
Yeah.
on the field, I was guarding that T-shirt with my life because I didn't want anything to spill on it because I wanted to have some sort of display.
Yeah. I mean, you won the World
And
Series.
so that I bought that Sports Illustrated when we won it, and then all of these other things as well are the itineraries and the tickets to the game. Our itinerary when we were flying from St. Louis, from Boston to St. Louis for games 3 and 4. I kept all of these things, and I had them in a sort of makeshift, kind of crazy looking frame because I'm not very artistic. And so my wife actually took all of these items. When we started dating, and she took them and she said, "You can't display that in that frame." And she took them somewhere and had them professionally framed. And so she did that. So it's amazing. And, one of the things that was ironic for me, again, it was a fairy tale for me because even though I have very strong roots in Southern California growing up there, Oxnard in LA, Matt Presti, what's going on? That is the original point forward, son. The original point forward in basketball is Paul Presti. Matt is one of my really good friends that I've known for a long time, starting when I was at ESPN, and he was playing at a prep school in Boston, outside of the Boston area. So Matt and I are really good friends. And when I was at Nike, he competed at Missouri, and that was one of my programs as well. So Matt's one of my really, really good friends.
Okay.
So I say that because when I was St. Louis, even though I have Southern California roots, I was actually born in St. Louis. So, and when I would go back to St. Louis in the summers, I played baseball in the summers in St. Louis. So for me to be part of not only winning the championship ring, but still not only winning that championship ring, but beating the St. Louis Cardinals, that was very surreal for me.
Oh, man.
And being in Busch Stadium, and we literally played the last games that were in the Busch Stadium that I grew up going to in St. Louis.
And I bet it was even more special to come down from a 3-0 deficit.
Yes, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. My brother Lawrence Washington is on here.
What's going on?
Hey, that's my brother.
All right. How's it
Yeah.
going, man?
So, it was just an amazing experience for a kid that was from St. Louis, and to go back and it didn't dawn on me, to be honest with you, because I was so focused on winning the championship. It didn't dawn on me that we were playing the Cardinals literally until we were celebrating in game 4, and I was standing at home plate and I was looking out the center field, and I thought, I grew up coming to this place.
That's
And
awesome.
it was so surreal. It was one of those moments that people talk about in sports where you're there. Yes, family reunion.
I know
And
exactly. I
you're
mean, we got
there.
everyone on here.
Yeah. And it's one of those situations where you're there, but you're also, it's almost like an out of body experience as well. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was such an amazing experience, and one that, I certainly want to continue to share with my daughter as she matriculates into sports and all those different things.
All right. Well, one thing I do here at Global Kid Media Classic, is I flip the switch, have the person I'm interviewing interview me. How would you like to do that?
Well, first off, I want to ask you about all the amazing work that you're doing, interviewing people like us, especially with you being so young. Tell me about what spurred your interest in doing this. What's your relationship to sports? Give me some insight there.
So I always wanted to find a way from a young age to inspire millions and millions of kids to do anything they want at any age that they want, that they can start young, that they don't have to wait till college or to get their degree to start doing what they love. And so the opportunity came up. You mentioned Sports Illustrated, so I got a chance to apply for Sports Illustrated for Kids, and I said I'm going to go all out. So you normally, when you're applying for Sports Illustrated for Kids, actually I got to say hello to someone. What's up, Enrique Santos? I got to get
Enrique,
him on
what's
the
going
show.
on?
Yeah, I got to get him on the show, man. He's big time. So what I was saying is, I wanted to find a way to inspire all these kids that can do anything at any age. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go on the speaking side. I had kind of a skill for communication. Then Sports Illustrated for Kids application came up, and I said, I'm going to do something nobody else has ever done before. I called 50 people at Michigan and Michigan State, and I tried to get access to the NCAA tournament. And so I was able to do that. I hit it off, did probably 100 interviews, talking to Coach Izzo, all the Michigan State guys, everyone. And afterwards, Sports Illustrated for Kids actually said, we're surprised you did all this. No one's ever done this. And we think you might have misused our name. So they were a little bit concerned about that, even though I made it clear I was applying. But anyways, they declined my application. And I said, at this point, I can quit and try to go back to speaking, or I can do it on my own and inspire millions of kids to do anything they want through media, doing
That's right.
something nobody's ever done before, which is be a visible brand on national TV as a kids sideline reporter. So that's what I've been dedicating my last 2 years into. Done about 1,000 interviews, spent thousands of hours on this business, talking to guys like Mr. Jack Nicklaus, Patrick Mahomes, Mr. Deion Sanders, Magic Johnson, Zion Williamson. So just talking to many, many people, getting those reps in, and working to that goal.
That's amazing, and keep going on your grind and on your journey. And I'll certainly be a fan. And as I said, if there are ways that we can partner that can help you, let's certainly do that. So from a sports perspective, yes, it is amazing what you're doing,
I
and
appreciate
don't
that.
ever forget that.
Appreciate
So
that.
even when it gets hard, when it gets difficult, just always keep that in mind. So from a sports perspective, what's your favorite sport? Who's your favorite athlete, and why?
As far as playing goes, my favorite sport to play is definitely football. I mean, I love football. Day one, been my favorite sport to play. As far as my favorite sport to cover, college basketball. I love covering college basketball because, as you were talking about, the culture at every single team is so different
That's right.
that you can really, really appreciate, every single one of those teams. Like I said, we were talking about from Michigan, so you got Michigan, Michigan State. Growing up, I didn't like Ohio State. I didn't like Notre Dame, Duke, or North Carolina, or teams like that. And now those are teams that I've largely covered, and so you really start to appreciate that culture.
Yeah, Yeah. No. So tell me a little bit about your favorite interview and why.
Some of my favorite
Done a
interviews,
lot.
and yeah, I mean Patrick Mahomes. When I interviewed him, he was talking about starting his legacy, and it's amazing to see he wanted to start a foundation. He's done that now, so it's amazing to watch someone who started off um, his first season in the Pro Bowl in 2019, and now matured to winning that MVP that year, and now Super Bowl MVP. So that's really incredible. I mean, Magic Johnson is really wise, a lot of wisdom. Mr. Jack Nicklaus teaches you patience. So he was telling me about, in golf, you stay patient, you observe, you learn from the game. So there's just been so many different interviews that I've done. And like I always say, you learn something from every single one. I mean, I
Yeah.
can learn something about myself, about the person I'm interviewing, and about media, about what I'm doing. Those are just three of the things that you learn in every single interview, plus one additional thing. So it's been truly incredible.
So what are some of your I have there's a question that I want to answer. So going back to the Red Sox, and then I want to ask you another question if we can. So
Yeah.
going back to the Red Sox, that mentality that it takes to go down 3-0 and then come back and win four straight was, of course you have to. I can tell you when we lost game 3, 19-8, we were pumped. We were absolutely pummeled. And but as crazy as this sounds, we were the better team, and we knew we were the better team. And we knew, going back to when I said earlier, we weren't competing against that 86-year curse. We were taking it just playing that one game. We knew that if we could win one game, we could win the series.
Yeah.
And one of our players, Kevin Millar at the time, actually said it. And he said, when we were down 3-0, we lost 19-8. He actually said, don't let us win one game. He actually said that in the media, and I'm sure people thought he was crazy. And, and it just, again, we were the better team, and that manifested itself. So, but yeah, we were dejected after game 3 for sure. But we made sure that we were steadfast about believing in ourselves and knowing that if we can just win one game, because if we win one game 4, we weren't going to win the series,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's just 3-1, but we have to win that one game. If we win game 5, that doesn't mean we win the series. We just got to win game 5. And if we win game 6, doesn't mean we won the series. We just got to win game 6.
One game at a time.
And then by the time now it's 3-3. Now it's, if we win game 7, we're going to win the series. And that's the mindset that it takes when you're doing that. So I want to ask you before we get out, what's your sort of dream interview? What's one of the interviews that you haven't gotten yet?
One of the interviews that I haven't gotten yet, man, I've done a lot with sports. So I've talked to pretty much, besides Jordan, I think pretty much most of the big names in sports. I'd like to talk to some people who are doing inspirational work, with the environmental side, with the social issues. I mean, I think that's equally important, or even more important, as a sports journalist, talking to those people, because I've
No.
always said this all my life. The more important interview is the one with the story, not the one that's like the big name. They don't have a story. What's the point of interviewing them? So
Right.
any day, 10 out of 10 times, I would rather interview a janitor than a Super Bowl MVP if they don't have a story.
Right. Right. Totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. It's about the story and how that story and their journey, similar to yours, can inspire others. That's what it's really about. And, that's partly what I'm doing at A.Williams basketball as well, just wanting to make sure that people don't go into the industry like I did, where it was like, I didn't know I wanted to do this because I never had any exposure to it. I never met anybody that was in it, etc. So it's very, especially now with technology and social media and all the things that you have at your disposal, it's no time like the present than for you to get started and put your impact on the business. So that's, I'm so inspired by what you're doing. Let's keep collaborating. Let's keep our fellowship going. You stay safe, and let's make sure we get in touch with each other pretty soon here.
Of course. And Instagram's about to kick us out in 30 seconds. So I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your wisdom, sharing your life lessons. All your experiences, they've been, I mean, truly, truly inspiring. You have a great story. So we'll be in touch. We'll talk off camera really soon. Everyone stay tuned. I have shows every weekday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday Conversations, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and you don't want to miss those. We've got some big guests coming up like Tim Brando, and so stay tuned for those. And once again, I appreciate you coming on. Stay safe.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Take it easy.